Today's JJ Redick podcast is brought to you by Belvedere Vodka. Produced in one of the world's longest-running distilleries, Belvedere Vodka is the world's finest all-natural vodka. Crafted by a collective of master distillers, Belvedere is made with non-GMO Polish rye, pure water, and no additives. Recognized for quality, Belvedere was named the ISC World Vodka Producer of the Year in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Enjoy a delicious cocktail with Belvedere Vodka today, and remember to always drink responsibly. We're also brought to you by SeatGeek, the best app for buying and selling tickets to sporting events, concerts, and more. I've actually used SeatGeek 3 times in the last week. I bought tickets for Mets games once and Yankees games twice. And the app, the site, the ticket delivery, it's all seamless. It's the best way to buy and sell tickets. For $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on any game or sporting event, use promo code JJ. Download the SeatGeek app or go right to SeatGeek.com. Welcome to this week's episode of the JJ Redick podcast. I have a great guest today. It is Utah Jazz guard Donovan Mitchell, who I think will be the Rookie of the Year runner-up. Do you have a grudge against teams that didn't draft you?
I will say that it would have been cool to play on Michael Jordan's team. I will say that. That would have been pretty cool. So when we play Charlotte, it's an extra, and Michael Jordan's and like Kobe Bryant as one of those guys for me this year that I kind of developed into a mindset of he's just a straight killer, and Michael Jordan had that same mindset. So, to be able to pick his brain every day would have been pretty special.
Donovan is a guest that I've wanted to have on the pod for a while. I'm happy that we got it worked out. We met here at the CAA offices in Midtown Manhattan and had a great conversation with Donovan. Before I get to my conversation with Donovan, I just wanted to do a couple housekeeping notes. This episode will come out. There's going to be a short little break until free agency. I'm going to go to Italy with my wife for a week, and then free agency will happen. I will have a post-free agency pod for you guys explaining my decision, my thoughts, maybe some questions as well about my decision that come from you guys. So I'll be sure to set up a mailbag and a Twitter question so you guys can get me some questions about free agency. It's weird. I did this mini documentary last year. And I think the takeaway from that documentary for me was how anxious I was about free agency. And we had to cut out a lot of my anxiety from the footage. This year is different. I feel different going into it. I'm much more relaxed about what will happen, what could happen. Whether it's perspective or whether it's just coming off a year where I really enjoyed the game. I'm in a good place heading into free agency, and hopefully. It all will work out. This pod with Donovan Mitchell will come out Thursday, June 21st, the morning of the 2018 NBA draft. This time of year, I always think back to my draft memories. When they introduced me prior to the draft starting, I was booed by the crowd at MSG, and then I had Mark Jones interview me live, asking me about my DUI prior to the draft. The real feeling I had when I was drafted and heard my name called was a sense of relief. And I think this is a lot of why I have some anxiety sometimes about free agency is, I think as human beings, we want to know our future. We want to have certainty in our lives. And that waiting period between when college basketball season ended and when your name is called on draft night, your mind can go a million different ways. And I think a lot of times in free agency, they're very similar. Your mind can go a million different ways about possible scenarios. And there's this sense of relief when a decision has been made, whether that's by a team drafting you or by you accepting a contract offer from a team in free agency. The draft itself is really interesting to me because it is sort of a crapshoot, and you can hit consistently year to year, and then you can have a dry spell both as an organization and as a front office. I'm curious, like, what the listener, what you guys think is a good sort of batting percentage, to use a baseball analogy. What is a good batting percentage over a 5 or 10-year run for a team and a front office in terms of really hitting on the draft? It's one of the reasons that Sam Hinkie's approach to the rebuild in Philadelphia was innovative and smart. He recognized that it wasn't just about drafting high in the draft. It was about having as many draft picks as possible and having as many plate appearances as possible, and trying to hit essentially a home run and draft a franchise player. The return on that, of course, is that we had high number one picks, high lottery picks, and obviously have two foundational pieces to show for it in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I'm going to start my conversation with Donovan right now. We're going to talk about the NBA draft and a bunch of other things. Let's go. Donovan, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I don't want to gas you up too much. I've been thinking about over the last 9 months who my sort of optimal basketball guests are, and your name kept popping up. You were at the top of the list, so I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate that.
And you're in New York, I assume, for some draft-related stuff?
Yeah, I'm here for the draft appearances, and I'm going to be doing a lot of social stuff too, so it'll be fun.
It was just about a year ago that your draft happened, and this time of year for me always brings back draft memories and what that night was like for me. What do you remember about your NBA draft night?
I remember working out until that Wednesday. For that, the Knicks was my last workout, so I really didn't get to go through all the media and all the interviews and all that stuff. I didn't really get to do all that because I was still doing my draft workout, thinking I was going to go number 8 to New York. So, but when I got here, it was just crazy. Anxiety. I really didn't know what to expect. Where I was getting picked. I thought I was going to Charlotte. Actually, I was thoroughly convinced I was going to Charlotte, and then that didn't happen, and I was kind of nervous after that. And then I got picked by Denver, and they didn't know I got traded till I got off the stage, and from there it was just pure excitement after that instead of being so nervous and anxious.
You said you thought you were going to the Knicks. You thought you were going to Charlotte. You thought you were going to Detroit.
Yep.
Because you didn't miss in their workout.
Didn't miss.
And Utah was sort of this faraway thing.
In 2024.
Yeah. And when you got off the stage, which is so awkward, so you put the Denver Nuggets hat on, you go up on stage, and then you're walking off stage, and that's the moment when they said, hey, you're in a trade and you're going to Utah.
Yeah. And
what was your sort of first reaction when you heard that?
I was excited. I kind of gave a little fist bump. I tell that story all the time. I gave a little fist bump because I was happy. I mean, not that I was saying I wouldn't be happy going to Denver, but I was really happy that I went to Utah. When you look at the Denver's roster at the guard spot, they had four. I would have been the fifth guard, and a team that had 3 guards that started and played a lot of minutes. So to go from there to Utah, where they had talked about having an opportunity there, obviously there were a lot of guards there as well, but having the opportunity, and they were really excited about me, and they traded up, which showed a lot of interest in me as well. I think that's what really got me excited.
You have to speak well of Utah because you play there. And I think for a lot of NBA guys, there's they don't have the most positive feelings about Utah. Obviously, we all recognize its natural beauty. What is it about living and playing in Utah that most NBA players don't understand? What makes it so great?
I think the first thing that stands out, I'm from here, the city and whatnot. I've played in the city my whole life. You don't really get to see mountains and land, I guess. So when I get there, it's kind of just a place where I can just decompress and relax. I don't have to worry about, horns and sirens at 3 a.m. It's just one of those things where you could just be in a place where it's peaceful and in tranquility. I think that's what I like most about it. The people there aren't as mean as they are up here, and the fans, they sell out every night.
To opposing players.
To opposing players, yeah, exactly.
I mean, you got Mitt Romney taunting Russell Westbrook.
Exactly. Like that's the stuff I like. They sell out every night, whether we're playing the number one team in the NBA or the last place team in the NBA. That dedication is something I like, because you've seen it. There have been arenas I played in this year that my high school gym has had more people in there. So the dedication from the fans is incredible. And then on top of that, playing for an organization that genuinely cares. I feel like obviously everything's a business and everything. If the decision came down to it, you could be gone, then I could be gone tomorrow. But there's a feeling that like people actually, and I hear it from guys who come in and who have left, that they actually care. They care about the right things, and they're not just in it for whatever it may be. I think that's something that really stands out.
The culture that you're talking about, was that something that you anticipated? Was that something that you had experienced before, maybe at Louisville?
Yeah,
Louisville?
It's been Louisville. I say Louisville, but it's Louisville.
How do you pronounce the capital of Kentucky? Is it Louisville or Louisville? How do you say it?
That's not the capital of Kentucky, though.
You're the first person that's ever got that joke.
What? I don't know
you
the capital.
It Frankfurt.
Frankfurt. Frankfurt. I was like, hold on a second.
I get everybody with that. Dang it. That wasn't even in my notes.
No, but the constant theme with me has been a home environment. I have to be able to. Obviously, in this world, you can't really trust a lot of people, but you got to be able to have that sense of trust and feeling at home. And when I got there to work out, from the person that made our food to the person that drove me from the airport, it just felt, and even when I got drafted, having the Millers pick me up, the owners of the team pick me up from the airport and bring me to, was it the hotel? I think it was the hotel where we were at. We drove to the hotel. Yes. Yeah, they drove us to the hotel. Like, that doesn't happen. I think that's kind of what you're like, man, like there's actually genuine excitement, genuineness about the people here. And I think that's what really attracted me, and that's why I love it.
You've only been in the league a year. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your teammates talk about sort of worst NBA cities. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that Utah ever gets brought up in that list, but do you have a list of a few or maybe just one, like worst NBA cities?
To be honest, during the season, I never really walk around. Like if I'm on a road trip, it's strictly...
We can edit this out.
No. I haven't... To be honest, I'm not a fan of Philly or Boston. Just because I grew up in New York, you can't like Boston, you can't like Philly, enough. And they don't like me, which really is cool. I kind of like that. Let's see.
Not many people say that. The cities that get brought up a lot. I mean, I'm not trying to.
I know Utah probably gets brought up, and that's because
places guys don't necessarily want to live.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I've been in the city so much that it's like. Yeah. Second nature to me. This is a different lifestyle for me now, and I kind of enjoy being in a different spot. Sure. And I don't need the being out late, and, I don't need that, especially coming into my first year where I kind of had no idea what to expect, and I'm playing a lot. But for me, I like a city where, I feel like my thing with Philly and Boston is the streets are narrow. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same as New York City. You know what I mean? Streets are narrow. I don't know how else to say it.
So there's something about the wide open spaces of Utah that just speaks to your soul.
I can drive for the first time, and the speed limit there is 15 to 20 miles faster than it is in any city. So I'm able to just cruise and just have fun. I think that's.
I have a car in New York, and I'm not sure why I have a car.
I drove here because I never used a lot different than driving back in Salt Lake. Yeah. I got one more. I got to remember it.
I'm going to give you mine.
Minnesota is cold.
Oh, my God.
Minnesota is freezing. I can't do that. We played there in April, and it was 2 degrees outside. I can't do that.
There's some cities that are better, I think, if you're a baseball player.
Yeah.
Summers in Minnesota are amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my worst city. Because this list, we talk about this all the time.
I've had time.
This list fluctuates. You know, sometimes a city will make the top 5, and then the next year
I think
I'll discover a new restaurant.
Yeah, what time of the year you go to.
Right. Like I did All-Star break in Toronto. It was -10 the whole time. That could give you a negative perception of Toronto. But I also played there in the playoffs my second year in mid-April when it was amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Indianapolis, though, for me, is
Really?
number one.
That's close to Louisville, so I can't.
I know.
Yeah, that's close to Louisville.
I knew you were going to say that. But I don't know. It's just, for me, it's...
what about it?
There's nothing. There's just nothing there. It's like
outside of the city of Indianapolis.
I mean, I don't know. There's just nothing there.
That's how my college was. Outside of Louisville, there's countries like country and fields and
farms.
But I didn't really leave
horses
much. Exactly, and they love their horses down there too.
Going back to the teams that passed you up. There's a lot of guys. The guys that come to mind right away are like Draymond Green, Paul Pierce, like those guys publicly coming out and saying, I'm going to hold a grudge against those teams that didn't draft me. Do you have a grudge against teams that didn't draft you?
Not all 12, because, like, to be honest, nowadays a lot of it is based off of hype. You hear stories. I've heard stories recently that come out about guys who are no longer GMs of teams that wanted a guy and people overrode him. And it's 1 against 4. Like that's how it is. So not every team. I will say that it would have been cool to play on Michael Jordan's team. I will say that. That would have been pretty cool. So when we play Charlotte, it's an extra, and Michael Jordan's and like Kobe Bryant as one of those guys for me this year that kind of developed into a mindset of like he's just a straight killer, and Michael Jordan had that same mindset. So, to be able to pick his brain every day would have been pretty special. So kind of when I play against them, it's kind of like, okay, kind of get that motivation, that feeling. And in Detroit, because like I said, I didn't miss. But those two especially, because as my agent Ty will tell you, and my mom and sister, after Detroit, I was like, all right, I don't know where I'm going to get picked, because I hadn't worked out for Denver. Miami, I got completely killed in the workout. And after that, I was like, why am I even in the green room? So like now that that's then playing in my head. So the top 10 teams, they had their guys, and they have their guys who are slated to be top 10. So I wasn't, like, if I got picked, it would have been cool. But if not, then, I'm not expecting to be. I averaged 15 points at Louisville, lost in the second round of the March Madness. So, for me, it was the range that I thought I was going in. I didn't go. That kind of put some fire.
There's those teams.
Yeah.
I think it all becomes relative, too. I think there's a good chance you end up being where you already are, but you end up being sort of a franchise cornerstone, and you play for a long time for Utah.
Yeah.
For me, it's not about the teams that didn't draft me. It's the teams that maybe traded me or elected to not re-sign me in free agency.
Yeah.
Those are the teams that, now I'm going in the 13th year, like, it's not that I hold grudges, but playing against those teams, your former teams, it's different. It's different, especially the first year or two out.
Exactly.
It's really different. You mentioned your draft range. Your mom is in the room right now, and everybody knows that she took some convincing, and you guys went back and forth about whether or not to stay in the draft. To juxtapose that against where you are now a year later, I'm wondering if you've had any time to sort of reflect about everything that has changed over the last year, specifically, how your life has changed off the court. Because I follow you on Instagram, and I've been noticing some things. And Mom, Dad, if you guys want to chime in.
Yeah, I got to drive a Lamborghini for the first time in my life.
You drove the Lamborghini?
Yeah. I didn't buy it. No.
Okay.
Everybody keeps telling me to save my money. Like I bought the car. I haven't bought a Lamborghini. I haven't bought a car. Okay. To be honest, so that's where I'm at.
There was also some PJs.
Yeah.
There were some PJs to the Bahamas.
Yeah, definitely. Got a hookup for that. So all those things that you see, it's not like I'm out there spending all this crazy money on it. No.
You gotta enjoy your life, man.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do certain things as a kid that now I have this opportunity to do it, and whether it's with my mom, my sister, my friends, I just want to enjoy it, because starting next week, and all the traveling is pretty much done, and I'm back to, getting back to work and whatnot. But to go from paying for my flight, barely having enough money to pay for my flight my hotel room to work out to now being able to drive a Lamborghini for 2 days randomly in LA, I think is from the kid inside of me, that's like the craziest thing to ever happen, and to have the season that I had. I still watch the games. I think I've watched about the first 20 games already from last season, just because I can't believe it all happened. But now I'm at a point where it's like, all right, that whole can't believe it nonsense is over with. Like, you're here, you belong. Now you gotta act like you're here, act like you belong. There's no more, oh my God, I'm playing against this, or I'm doing this against this person. Now it's going to be expected next year. Now people are going to be game planning differently. So I've had time for the past month and a half to kind of reflect, and now it's kind of like, all right, let's get on to next year. There's going to be a lot more to prove.
You have a reputation for being a humble guy. Mm-hmm. Do you battle at all with fame? And I'm assuming now if you walked around New York City, you get noticed probably way more than you did a year ago.
Yeah.
And if so, like, is that a struggle? Do you struggle with sort of, or do you enjoy your anonymity, I guess is what I'm asking?
I think for me, going to a school like Louisville allowed me to experience that early. Obviously not to this degree, to where I'm going overseas and people are like screaming my name and waiting in airports, but like it allowed me to realize the power that I have of being this athlete, that I am, and it kind of prepared me a little bit for it. There's certain things that I realize I can't do, like I can't like certain things on Instagram and Twitter, as I figured out throughout the entire year. Like that's the kind of stuff that's new to me.
Yeah.
That I can't comment what I want, I can't say what I want anymore. But I don't struggle with it. I don't feel like it is a struggle. I think I use it more for positive things than negative. I'm not one to be doing crazy things like you see some guys do. I don't really do that. I got to set a good example, not just for my fans, but like I still have my sister, so I got to set a good example for her. And if I'm out there doing outlandish stuff, then what example I am for her. So I don't really think I struggle with it. And it also helps being in a city like Utah, where everybody, they understand who I am and they understand what I've done, but in the way they respect like my privacy. Like if I'm out walking, they'll take a picture, but like it won't be here where I get followed for 3 blocks because a guy wants to ask a picture, but he won't. He'll just stand there and walk with me for 3 blocks. So now I'm like, is this guy trying to rob me? Like, why is he like following me? Like stuff like that. So that's why.
Try riding the subway. It gets weird.
I can only imagine.
It gets weird. I'm not saying it's outlandish, but whose idea was the sweatshirt? The rookie sweatshirt.
It was Adidas, but we had already talked about it before. Okay. I didn't know. The timing of it was like impeccable.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about it before. I didn't know exactly where it was going. I understood the concept of it. And then when I saw it, and then Ben said what he said the day before.
The day before.
Like, I got in the mail that day. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, we had 2 games, like one of our last 2 games of the season or whatever. I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is the perfect time to go out there and wear it. And that's just like the kid in me, like to have fun. And, I hadn't really said much the entire year, but, that just called for me to at least respond in some way.
I talk about it all the time on the podcast, but there's a level of trolling in the NBA that really just does not exist in other professional sports.
Not at all.
And it's almost it's side entertainment, man. It's amazing. I actually appreciated the sweatshirt. You probably can guess where I stand on the Rookie of the Year debate. But I couldn't find a quote from you where you specifically talk about the award and sort of the significance to you. Like, how meaningful would it be if you were Rookie of the Year?
To be honest, my answer has changed in the past few months.
Okay.
Winning the one by the players kind of changed my whole perception. I kind of realized that, maybe, like, to be honest with you, I really don't think I'm going to win, because it's just how it is. You're a big market, whatever it may be. I feel like I should, because my peers voted me, so I'm not really worried about what analysts say. No offense to all the analysts, but like, they don't have to guard me, so like that's how I look at it, so for right now, like what I just said, I wouldn't have said 5 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, because now I kind of get it. I understand. You know, and so if I win it, I'd be the happiest man alive. But in the same right, it goes back to what I said before, that rookie season's over with. You know, I'm not trying to be the best player out of 60 or whatever, 60 or some whatever players. I'm trying to be the best out of the 450 in the league. So, you know, if I don't win it, it's more motivation and it adds to the fuel. But even so,
the award itself doesn't necessarily bring closure to this last crazy year of your life. You've already sort of accepted closure.
Like I beat we beat the guy who I would literally sit in my gym and type in his highlights in Russell Westbrook and copy his layups, copy his dunks, like while I'm in the gym at 2 a.m. and we won. Like that was incredible to me. So that made my year. You know, obviously we wish we would have beat Houston and whatnot, but you know, doing that and competing against him, going from 1 year ago, literally during pre-draft, trying to find ways to still emulate him, and then having to go out there and guard him and trading 20-point quarters with him, like that's something I can, you know, for the rest of my life talk about.
Yeah.
So, no, the award doesn't really bring closure for me at all.
That's fair enough. It's fair enough. Is it okay when I'm gonna tweet out on Thursday when I link my pod? I'm gonna tweet out my podcast with Donovan Mitchell, this year's Rookie of the Year runner-up.
I don't know if you can say all that.
Would you be offended?
Definitely would.
Okay. Fine, I won't. I'm glad you brought up Westbrook, actually. I'm going to jump to a different section because you said you had your rookie moment with Westbrook where you tried to talk to him on the court the first time you played him.
Yeah. See, like what I'm saying, like you watch these guys' highlights so much, and you kind of know their reactions, you know their tendencies. That it's like you feel like you kind of know them. Like, you know, you'd be like, oh, like, yeah, like, oh, if I say something, he'll know who I am because I've watched him so much, and he's supposed to know that I've watched his highlights for so long. So he got me on a pump fake, and I jumped and I fouled him, whatever. And I was like, all right, good move. Like, you know, just I'll say it to anybody, but I figured, you know, why not just say it now? This is my first time starting too. Or second time, excuse me, because whatever had happened at the beginning of the game, I found out like 30 seconds before. So I get out there, do that, and I said it to him, and he kind of just looked at me like, he was like, the fuck you talking to? Like, I was like, that's when I was kind of like, oh shit, like nah, this is it. Like, you know, this isn't some like walk in the park or whatever. Like this is the real deal. And that
it's not
really,
a pickup game.
Yeah, it really like changed my mindset. And, you know, from that moment, for him telling me after we played him the last time regular season, that, you know, he respects my game and, you know, keep killing dudes. Like, you know, it came a long way from that remark to him talking to me after the game.
Brings me back to my rookie moment. I didn't really play a lot my rookie year. In fact, I didn't dress like in uniform for most games until like mid-January. So I was always in a suit. But early on in the season, I guess we had an injury or something. I got to dress out, and they threw me into the game in the second quarter. We were playing at Detroit. This is when Detroit was Eastern Conference champions. They were amazing. And I checked in the game and immediately had to guard Rip Hamilton on an inbounds play. And I just remember Rasheed Wallace, who was sitting on the bench, just heckling me mercilessly. And I think Rip scored 3 straight times. And then Carlos Delfino, of all people, dunked on me on a back cut.
Good.
Yeah, and it was... I got dunked on by Jamal Murray this year. That's the other probably worst dunk I've ever had in my career. Thanks. It's on House of Highlights. And I literally probably went into a shell after that game, like because of what Rasheed was saying.
Yeah.
And it was so bad. I remember at the end of that game, like I caught a ball in the wing and there was like a 5-on-3 and I could have just driven in and laid it up. And I drove in and just kept dribbling because I was so shook. So it took me a while to feel like I was a peer with NBA players. Did you have a moment, a game, a stretch where you were like, I'm one of them now? And by one of them, I don't mean just an NBA player. I'm saying I'm one of them. I'm a star. I'm a Paul George. I'm a Westbrook.
You know, it's not the popular thing to say, like, you know, like what I'm saying, like, you know, like what you're saying, like, you don't, it takes a while to feel like for the season that I had, you know, you got guys, other rookies saying, you know, I was built to be here, I was made for this. Like, no, it took me probably to like January, February to realize that, you know, I could do this. Despite all the success I had, you know, the 41-point game, whatever it may be, because I just felt like at the time I was like, all right, they're going to adjust, and I'm not going to know what the hell to expect. And my coaches just kept preparing me. You know, Johnny Bryan we're very close. And every time we would play, he'd prepare me for whatever there's going to, whether it's like a blitz coming, channel 2, channel 3, and I was always ready. But I didn't realize how significant those lessons were. So every night it'd be like, all right, am I going to go out there and be like I was the first 10 games of the season with 2 points, 8 turnovers, or is it going to be like a game where I actually, pass the ball well, or am I going to shoot the ball well? And there were times, you hear critics, he shoots 20 shots a game, this, and that. I hear it. I see it, but I got to a point probably in January where I was like, look, I'm figuring this out on the fly. I can't please everybody. This isn't college. This is my first year. So let's go out there and just play. So it took me probably until about January, February to realize that February. We had that the 10-game winning streak. And that's when I kind of realized that, I was a significant piece to the team and an integral part in what we did, but also someone who could be a staple in the league.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Support for today's show comes from an innovative shampoo. I know when I think of shampoos that I want to use, innovative is the first adjective that comes to mind. The second being that it leaves my hair feeling moisturized. I love moisturized. Moisturized hair is great. Introducing Control GX, the first gray-reducing shampoo from Just for Men. Just for Men helps men look their best so they can celebrate who they are, what they achieved, and how they feel. Some of us want to celebrate our grays. If you don't want to celebrate your grays, then use Control GX. Control GX relentlessly innovates and delivers smart hair care technology that does the work for you, making it radically easy to get the natural look you want. And now reducing your gray is as easy as washing your hair with Control GX. Just use as you would your regular shampoo until you like what you see. Subtle, natural-looking results. When I shampoo, I generally like to do more of a scalp massage than just, kind of pulling at the roots and up to the tip of the hair. I really like to stimulate the blood flow in the head. Shampoo in, rinse out, move on. It's that easy. Most guys get the results they want in about 2 weeks. You can look forward to a very smart look, because when you look as good as you feel, every date night, every meeting, every guy's night out will be something to look forward to. You can get 25% off Control GX using code REGROWTH25 at controlgx.com. That's code REGROWTH25 to get 25% off Control GX at controlgx.com. I feel like this ad is trying to tell me something about my grays. Belvedere. Produced in one of the world's longest-running distilleries, Belvedere Vodka is the world's finest all-natural vodka. Crafted by a collective of master distillers, Belvedere is made with non-GMO Polish rye, pure water, and no additives. Recognized for quality, Belvedere was named the ISC World Vodka Producer of the Year in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Belvedere's unmatched quality reminds me of one of the greatest teams in the history of the NBA, the 1982-1983 Philadelphia 76ers, featuring legends of the game like Dr. J, Moses Malone, and Maurice Cheeks, just to name a few. The 76ers won the championship that year in absolutely dominating fashion, eviscerating their opponents in each of the 3 rounds, only losing 1 game and coming dangerously close to making the great Moses Malone's famous faux prediction come true. Over the course of their storied history, the 76ers have always played a brand of basketball of unparalleled quality, just like Belvedere Vodka. Enjoy a delicious cocktail with Belvedere Vodka today. Remember to always drink responsibly and trust the process. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Rookie of the Year runner-up, Donovan Mitchell. Talking about heroes, you mentioned Westbrook. I think I read somewhere that you had a LeBron poster on your wall. I know Chris and you have CP and you have a very close relationship as well. What was it like playing those guys for the first time? Were you in awe? Were you scared? Have you ever heard of Imposter Syndrome?
No, I've heard of it.
What you're literally describing, where you're thinking when am I gonna have that 2 for 10 game? When are they gonna adjust? Like that, essentially. That is Imposter Syndrome. It's the sort of the notion that you're gonna be found out as a fraud. And honestly, we talked about this on my Jason Sudeikis pod, but like most high-level people have some form of imposter syndrome.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, those first few times where you're going against Westbrook or CP or Damian Lillard or LeBron, what's going through your mind?
It's kind of different for every player. When I guarded Westbrook, I told you I had that moment. I played well. I didn't really do nothing crazy. We won. That was the only time we beat him throughout the regular season. We played CP. I'm trying to remember the first time. We played them. He was hurt the first time we played him at Houston, and I played okay. But Houston would always give me problems. Trevor Ariza just completely had my number throughout the whole year, pretty much. So having to guard CP, I learned so much from having to guard him. You can watch film as many times as you want, but I watched the playoff series where you guys played Utah 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
And I try, I'm like, right, he gets to the ball on the left side, he's going to cut back and do all this little stuff. If he goes right, he does this. But it's one thing to watch it over and over, but you got to experience it at some point. You got to go through it. So, as much as I want to send him right, he's going to come left off the pick and roll. Somehow he's going to get back to the left hand. So that was more of a learning experience of CP because I had been playing with him all summer. So the awe kind of wore out after the first time he kicked my ass in the workout where he had 5 straight points without dribbling the ball from the elbow against me and Luke.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of like that awe moment. That moment I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be in the NBA.
This was before the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I should be in the NBA draft because, he didn't take a dribble. He's scoring five straight points, So that happened. Then we played Bron, and I told my coach, I was like, man, I grew up a big Miami. I was a Heat fan. I went to the decision. I was the only Heat fan probably in the decision.
You were at the decision?
Yeah. I was right outside. It's right down the street from where I went to school.
Sure.
So I was probably the only person celebrating during the entire ceremony or whatever you want to call it. And I was cheering. My mom remembers it was 11 o'clock. I'm out there jumping and screaming when they won their first title. I was a big LeBron fan. So I get out there. Whatever, we play. It was a close game. I'm hitting shots that I'm like, shoot, we might win the game. I'm hitting clutch shots. We're getting close, but evidently he keeps switching, and I have to keep guarding him, and I get 4 straight fouls, and they end up winning the game. Then he talked to me after. Him and D-Wade talked to me after. And I didn't realize, Brown was significant, but I didn't realize the impact of D-Wade talking to me because now that I watch highlights and watch film, he was a guy that now I'm like, all right, how did he do this? I got to copy this. I got to copy that. You can't copy Bron. He's 6'8", 250. You can't copy how he reads and all that stuff. So I realized talking to those two was really and if you watch the video, you can see me go like this, with my shirt, kind of cover my mouth because I'm trying not to smile. I'm trying not to be like the little kid, So that was pretty much an awe moment. But after that, it was over. After we played them guys the first time, it was all right, now I'm ready to kick your ass. I don't really care about who you are. To me, whatever, I was ready.
Is CP's trickery, it's annoying, right?
Every game I'm and he just says whatever, and he just throws the ball, and I'm like, come on.
He's yelling at the refs. Yeah. He's doing his little sweep through on the left
I said
block.
There's gonna be a day where I get you a technical foul. for there's gonna be a day, and that'll be the happiest day of my NBA career.
I love CP.
That's my guy.
But he's got some bullshit with his name. Sometimes it's baffling to me. I want to actually talk about your mom. Mm-hmm. And we're on the topic of people that have influenced you a lot. There's a great story that's been told a couple times about her making you miss an AAU game because I think it was 8th grade, right?
Was it 8th grade? Yeah, 8th grade.
Because you had to memorize a speech for school by Saturday and you didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what the speech was?
I don't remember what the speech was, but I remember missing the game for sure, and it was pretty much a significant moment, but I didn't realize it, and I wasn't the greatest student, pretty much I was not a great student at all. My favorite 2 subjects were recess and gym. Those are my favorite subjects, and, I never really wanted to do it. And I went to a school where you had to work hard. I went to Greenwich Country Day School, a private school in Connecticut, and, teachers didn't cut me any slack because I could play basketball. As a matter of fact, they didn't even care that I played basketball, and I think that helped me be where I am today because without my mom doing that, I would have been able to feel like I would have been able to do whatever, and I think it takes a while for you to learn and listen and figure it out. And eventually you start to figure it out. But that moment, you not making a game, realizing like I gotta get my work done, and it took me till about my junior year of high school for it to finally click academically for me, because I had to qualify for college.
Right.
Otherwise,
Right.
wouldn't be going to school.
Right.
So I think it really clicked for me. I went to boarding school, so I was away from home, and I really took that upon myself because of her to develop that hunger, not so much on the court, but in the classroom, doing projects ahead of time. That way I can get into the gym late at night, waking up early before 6 a.m. to finish something I didn't want to finish the night before. Like if I didn't want to do it the night before, at least doing it in the morning. That way when I get to class, I have it done. Finding ways to always make sure your work is done, because without work, then basketball eventually runs out. Basketball, she likes to say, she always says, the ball gets flat, and runs out of air, but you keep the degree forever. And, he went to Duke, and unfortunately I didn't go to a school like Duke, academically. I went to Louisville. And
Not many people can. Yeah.
I plan on finishing,
Just
I figure that's the, what do they call it, like the...
It's the Duke elitism.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
It's a real thing.
But I plan on going back and finishing, my degrees and whatnot before it takes too long. And I'm not trying to do it 10 years in a row. I'm trying to do it 2-3 years into the league. That way I have it with me, just in case. You never know what may happen.
You're a grown person now. You're getting paid a nice salary. Mm-hmm. Probably will be on a max contract in 3 years.
Hopefully.
But how does her influence manifest itself now as a professional?
I think a lot of it kind of plays into what you were talking about earlier about the fame, the Instagrams, all that stuff. Because without the right guidance, you could be doing reckless stuff. You're not realizing how powerful you really are. She's a teacher at the school I went to, so being able to go back, like little things, going back and visiting that, you may not always want to do, but you don't realize that when you go there, you make a kid's week just to say he saw you, just say you walk into a class. If I go read to a kid in class, just to realize that a kid could, like I've seen kids cry when I walk into a room before, that's kind of like it hits home in me, because there are times, there's one time I met an NBA guy, and I was about 8 years old in North Carolina, and I went to get an autograph, and I turned around to get a pen, and I came back, and he was gone. So like that moment for me has stuck with me forever. So now anything that involves a kid, I'm there for. I think in having her be a teacher at a school allows me to consistently come back and understand how powerful I can be in a community like that. And I think that plays into my professionalism, me being humble. Because she told me basically after my sophomore year that God was going to humble me in a certain way, because that was a year where I wasn't really who I am today. I would leave class early if we had a game to go take a nap. I was at boarding school, so I'd be like, oh, I'm sick, and go sleep in my dorm for 3 hours and be ready to play the 8 o'clock game. Average 25, didn't play defense. I felt like I was the man on campus, and it just wasn't who I was. And a week before I broke my wrist, she told me that God was going to humble me. So she knew. Yeah. So that type of stuff allowed me to kind of realize that I need to be a certain person, to be humble and to be the right person in order to be successful, not in this league, but just in life.
Yeah. We all have our sphere of influence. We all have our bit of power, whatever that is, to influence others, inspire others, and make a difference. And, I think by and large, NBA players, for the most part, recognize that and are doing an outstanding job of holding that responsibility. Mm-hmm. Year 2.
Yeah.
You mentioned sort of managing expectations earlier. What are you doing this summer? What's the game plan this summer? I know you're a film guy. Do you watch film in the summer?
Yeah, 100%.
And what part of your game, or what are you trying to add to it, or are we trying to improve on?
Well, the thing about the Houston series is it allowed for me to see my weaknesses at a much higher level, with the playoffs. And they did a great job, CP, all those guys, game planning for me, because now I watched that series more than I watched the OKC one, because I wanted to see why I had 1 point going into the fourth quarter in game 1 and had no assists, no rebounds. I haven't done that all season. And to come and do that in the playoffs, I had been riding a high wave to come into that series and kind of be, everybody will remember the tip dunk and everybody remember the 20-point quarter, whatever, but they forget about the other games where I really didn't do much. And Ricky came out, so I had to be more of a point guard, be more of a pass-first guy. So now that allowed me to go into the summer and be like, look, I got to be able to make passes. I got to be able to throw passes on target. I got to make sure my turnovers are down, becoming a better defensive player, being in shape to do both. Because there are times where I've played great defense and had terrible offensive games, and there are times where I've had great offensive games and had terrible defensive games because I wasn't in shape to do both. I didn't realize how much shape I needed to be in. So those are pretty much the two things right now. Hitting tougher shots. There are shots I look at from certain games that we should have won, and I'm like, man, I need to hit that shot. Like shots that you need to make as the go-to guy. And I think I talked to Dame a lot about that. He hits miraculous shots from half court, and even yourself, you hit shots. You're coming off a handoff and falling out of bounds, and you hit them at the right time during the playoffs or whatever. So you got to be able to, as the guy, and you're the leader, the vet on that team. You got to be able to make shots when the going gets tough. Yeah. So those are the things I've really been working on, and finding a mid-range. Gotta find a mid-range at some point in time.
You feel like it's threes or rim right now?
Yeah. I mean, mid-range will be there like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And then everything else is like here nor there.
It's interesting you bring up sort of the shape you have to be in to be a primary scorer in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I've always marveled at guys like Iverson and Kobe who could shoot like 35 or 40 times in a game. Mm-hmm. It's like you had games this year where you took 25 to 35 shots. It's so hard to shoot that many shots.
It is, and people say, oh, you just shoot it every time you want, but it's not so much shooting, it's finding the good shots to take.
Yeah.
We had one game against San Antonio. I had 36 shots. I can feel when I shoot. Like I can feel like, all right, I'm taking a lot of shots, and they're not going in. So I was like 12 or 36 or whatever it was. Like whatever, it was a bad shooting night.
Yeah.
And I get to the bench and ask my coach, like, how many shots I taking? And the first thing he said was, why is that what you're worried about?
Who said this is Quinn?
No, this is Sagana Diop.
Okay. Yeah,
like I asked him, I said, Ghana. None of the coaches know this. Like I'm like, Ghana, I feel like I'm shooting like how many shots I take? He's like, why are you worrying? You're worrying about the wrong thing, And a lot of my success is a lot of my confidence in taking all those shots that people say are ridiculous and crazy shots because my teammates say shoot the ball.
Right.
My teammates are the ones backing me on that. If you have teammates that are like, why is this dude shooting the ball 36 times, then it's a different story. But my teammates, if I don't shoot a shot, like Joe Ingles is going to let me know in the timeout. He'll spend the 3 minutes to say, shoot the fucking ball. Like, we need you to shoot the ball. Like, shoot it. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that gives me the confidence to go out there and take certain shots. And it may not always be the shot that is, like, wanted, but that's because it's what I've gotten to understand is my first year, and I try my hardest not to say, oh, it's my first year, I can take this shot. I try to hold myself to a level that Damian holds himself to, that KD holds himself to. Like, all right, fourth quarter comes, I need to hit this shot, no matter if it's contested, falling out of bounds, whatever it may be, I need to hit it. And sometimes my ambitions have gotten the best of me, and I've airballed shots, hit the side of the backboard, but the confidence is there, and that comes from my teammates telling me to shoot the ball.
You had a game against us, I think it was in November.
I played terrible both times I played y'all. Just want to let you know that now.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up one of them. And I think we beat you guys both times.
Yes, you did.
But you were like 3 for 21. It was like early in the season. It's probably like let's call it game 15. Somewhere in that 15.
3 of 21.
Yeah, and you were 3 of 21. And I remember thinking to myself after the game, like, I felt like you had killed that game, number one. And I felt like you had taken all good shots. And I felt like that was a lot of shots for a rookie to take.
That was early on too.
That was early.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some nice offensive games. You hadn't had sort of the stretches that you had later in the season. And the relationship with Quinn, because he's ultimately the guy that's sort of steering the ship. What is it about him that you feel that freedom to go 3 for 21 and then the next game come back just as aggressive? It's got to come from more than just your teammates.
Yeah, he's the same one saying the same thing. Shoot the ball. And I think after that game specifically, we played the Chicago Bulls. And there were times where we looked at the film and we were like, all right, maybe this shot can be a pass. Maybe this layup can be a pass to the corner. Stuff that as a rookie or as a young player I don't see, at that time. Like, to be honest, like, I get to the rim if I see a 6'8" dude in front of me or whatever, either A, trying to dunk on him, or like I lose all sight of like what's all going on out there. I just try and finish because that's what I've been used to my whole life. I can be able to dunk on people or finish at the rim. So we had film right after that game. Him and I, we sat down and we were like, all right, this is what this shot needs to be a pass or run a different play, whatever it may be. And the next game I took 4 shots. And, you know, it's easy to say, well, how'd you continue the confidence? But the next game I took 4 shots. We played the Chicago Bulls at home. We won by a lot, but I only took 4 shots, and I had like 8 assists, and I passed the ball every chance I got because I was like shit. You know, I went 3 of 21. I let the individual matchup get the best of me. You know, I talked to Ty. We had dinner. I'm like, look, this game, this is the game. You know, and I'm not the type of person to be the night before, like, I'm going to go ahead and kill. Like, it's just, you know, so I let that get the best of me. So I wasn't playing for my teammates that game. That's not me. I was playing for, like, all right, I'm going to kick your ass. So got out there, didn't play well. Next game I go out and pass the ball.
Are you saying your personal matchup with Ben?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
And I get out there and I pass the ball every time to every guy that's open. And I'm like, all right, now I'm starting to get it. So then the game after that, I have like 20 and 6. So I'm like, all right, now I'm starting to get it. And from there, it started to pick up. So now I was able to get both. You know, we don't have a lot of practice time, so I don't have a lot of time to get these reps. Yeah. So I'm not saying I use Chicago as a game to get reps, but like I literally overdid it, you know, and Quinn always makes a joke, like when he teaches me something, I overdo it. So like if I work on a mid-range jump shot, all practice, the next game I'm shooting all mid-range. That's just how it was all season. If I work on a corner 3, I'm finding a way to get to the corner and shoot a 3 as many times as I can because I just worked on it. So there's a lot of overconfidence in it. So that really propelled me to get to and helped me get to where I'm at now.
Was it surprising? I don't want to say what you did this year was easy, but was it surprising to you the level of success you had?
Yeah, every bit of it up until the end.
So going into year 2 then, what is the expectation of yourself?
1, we got to make it past the second round.
Okay.
Whatever that may be. For me personally, I got to get my assist numbers up. I'm a better rebounder than it shows. And I got to become more efficient. Like I said, hitting tougher shots. I got to be a guy who, you look at, I've watched Kevin Durant a lot these playoffs.
Yeah.
I watched the game. I was at game 3. And it felt like every time he had the ball, it was like, oh, shit. Like, here we go. Like, I feel like that was the atmosphere in Cleveland. I want that same atmosphere everywhere I go. You know, like when Jordan has the ball, every time he has the ball, it's like, oh, damn, here we go again. Kobe, same thing. You know, I want that same level of respect. And obviously it's not going to come just off of 1 year, but that's where I'm at. You know, I'm not at this is year 2 for me. I'm at year 4. You know, mentally, all right, this is where I need to be at. I've seen all the coverages. I feel like, you know, teams have double teamed me. They've denied me. They've sagged off of Ricky. They've sagged off of whatever. So I've seen a lot in my first year. So now it's like, all right, now I need to pick it up a lot more. Like, this is not trying to be a gradual adjustment. This is trying to be an even different person than last year. Like, last year is over with, never happened. I need to be even higher.
I have a technical question on your shooting. Your lower body, when you shoot, is like the best I've ever seen.
Really?
In terms of staying square. I watch Steph, KD, Clay is probably the second best I've seen. I'm terrible at it, but I always sort of inevitably
swing
turn
back into it
to the right. Like, my right leg always gets out in front. Kevin Durant does it like
this way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't. When I watched you in the playoffs, it didn't matter like if you were going right or left. Mm-hmm. You were somehow able to like maintain the squareness in your lower body. For me, upper body's easy, where I can square that up easy. How is that something you work on? Or is that something that's just the way you've always shot?
To be honest,
I need to do more squats?
I've never heard that before. To be honest, I've never heard that before.
Really?
Like, I never looked at it. My biggest thing when Coach P and I worked on because I shot 25% from the 3 my first year.
Yeah.
And I came out there, and the first thing I worked on was my arc on my jump shot. I shot a real flat basketball, so I worked on my arc. and just keeping my elbow in. A lot of times I'd be like, and holding my follow through. So those 3 things, there's a lot. As a shooter, you're supposed to work on like one thing. I was told like one thing and you get better at it, but I did 3 things like in one summer.
That's tough.
And I went up 10%.
Yeah.
And I think he gave me that just because he felt like I could handle it, and not go too crazy with it, like, oh, I got to do this, and that. But my biggest thing was those 3 things I just told you. I didn't really think about the lower body. All I said was left foot down, right foot down, get the shot up. I really didn't think about the lower body, like that.
There's certain shots that, and it's inevitable that you're going to twist a little bit as if you're running away from the basket around a pin down and you turn and shoot at 25 feet. Like you're going to have some variance in your legs. I'm when I start my basketball workouts, like my first week, I'm going to record everything because I really want to know, like, I'm like a visual then to feel person. Does that make sense? I have to see something first and then remember how did that feel now that I've seen it, and I can sort of transfer that. Anyways, that's one of the things that I want to like focus on this summer with my own shooting is keeping that lower body sort of square. Donovan, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate all the time. I'm a huge fan. And best of luck next season, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of the JJ Redick podcast. Thank you, Donovan Mitchell, for coming on the show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And as always, if you have suggestions, comments, rants about the show, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at JJ Redick. I'll be back soon. Take care. Support for today's show comes from Control GX, the first shampoo that gradually reduces gray from Just for Men. Just use Control GX as you would your regular shampoo until you like what you see. Subtle, natural-looking results. That's definitely what I like to see after a shower. Shampoo in, rinse out, move on. Most guys get the results they want in about 2 weeks. Look forward to a smart look with Control GX. And here's the good news. You can get 25% off Control GX using code REGROWTH25 at controlgx.com. That's code REGROWTH25 to get 25% off Control GX at controlgx.com.